Ladies and gentlemen, our ceremony will begin shortly. At this time, please take your seats and turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2015 National Crime Victims Service Awards Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard and the performance of the National Anthem by the Navy Band Brass Quintet. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, David Ferriero, Archivist of the United States.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the more than 3,000 employees spread across the 46 facilities of the National Archives across the United States, it's an honor to serve as your host for this afternoon's awards ceremony, and I'm glad to recognize Attorney General Holder, Assistant Attorney General Mason, and Ms. Joy Frost, Director of the Office of Victims' Crimes. Awardees, family members of victims of crime, and allied professionals from across the United States, welcome to my house this afternoon. As President Obama said in his National Crime Victims' Rights Week proclamation, all crime victims have fundamental rights, and I can't think of a better setting for today's ceremony than in the place where those rights are preserved and enshrined and celebrated upstairs in the rotunda. The National Archives is the home of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, known collectively as the Charters of Freedom. They're on display 2 levels above us, and I hope you'll have an opportunity to come up and see those documents today. Thomas Jefferson said, "Information is the currency of democracy." Simply put, the National Archives and Records Administration is the keeper of one of the most important parts of that currency, the records created by the United States government. John Russell Pope designed this building as a temple to American history. He believed only a monumental building in his beloved neoclassical style could appropriately showcase the most treasured documents of our democracy. He made the National Archives taller than neighboring structures, surrounded it with a moat, and set it at an angle to emphasize the importance of this building to the American people. He wanted everyone to know that records matter. When we opened our doors in 1935, our mission was to collect, protect, and encourage the use of the records of the United States government, and most importantly, to make those records available so that the American people can hold its government accountable and learn from our past. We're the final destination of the most important records of the United States government. We're responsible for the records of 275 executive branch agencies and departments, the White House, and the Supreme Court, and we provide courtesy storage to the records of Congress. Our records start with the oaths of allegiance signed by George Washington and his troops at Valley Forge and go all the way up to the tweets that are being created as I am speaking in the White House. It's a collection of about 12 billion pieces of paper, 42 million photographs, miles and miles of film and video, and more than 5 billion electronic records, the fastest growing record form. Every day we take in or accession more records, and we estimate that the paper records grow by about 500 million records a year. Our holdings include the general records of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General's records from 1790, the records of the National Commission on Law, Observation, and Enforcement, records of U.S. attorneys and marshals, and the Office for Victims' Crimes. At the National Archives, history comes to life. We house the tangible reminders of where we have been, how far we have come, and what is possible. Each record, large or small, is a representation of a greater story, many of which are still being told today in daily life. The National Archives tells everyone's story. Again, welcome to the National Archives, and thanks for choosing this historic building for your event this afternoon. Thank you.
Anybody can be a victim of a violent crime.
Not feeling valued by the institutions that are supposed to be serving you, like the police department, the criminal justice system, the education system, perpetuates a sense of hopelessness.
It's extremely important to get out and spread the word that there is help, there's hope, there's support.
Each and every one of us can do things every day in our relationships, in our families, in our workplace.
It takes all of us together, not just one agency, one shelter, one program. We need a continuum of services so that we can meet victims wherever they are.
In Philadelphia, trauma was really at the center of what was happening in the lives of victims of violence. We have focused on the issue of trauma as it relates to urban violence, particularly for young people of color.
Trauma-informed care is really recognizing how chronic stress, exposure to violence has an impact on a person's behavior. All of those things feed back into that cycle of violence. Healing Hurt People is a hospital-based violence intervention program. The young people that we work with, they've been shot, stabbed, or assaulted.
People in this room, everyone in this room is at a different stage of healing.
We have worked to identify some of the gaps in victim services for the young people. And the sad part about it is that our young people don't really know all of the resources that are available to them.
Many of these young people have been viewed as bad. Rather than having been injured by trauma, we're taking a broader perspective and seeing these young people in the same way that we would see anyone else who's been a victim of violence.
I love Los Angeles. We are a vibrant, vibrant community. We are survivor-centric. What we try to do is, as a leadership organization, create environments so that people can talk about the roots of violence and engage with one another.
When we're working with domestic violence survivors, understanding that if a person's reporting for the first time, if a survivor's holding back, not being forthcoming with a lot of the details, it's not that they're lying, it's that they've been through a traumatic experience.
A group of deaf women came to our organization because they were concerned about privacy. We started a program that dealt with sexual and domestic violence for the deaf community and people with disabilities, very much targeted for them, aimed at their needs.
We're here to provide those options and resources so that survivor then has that power within themselves to move forward and start their healing process.
From every disaster comes a silver lining. And I think Hurricane Katrina was an opportunity for New Orleans to get some things right.
New Orleans, unfortunately, has this history of education systems that didn't really address those needs of kids who are chronically exposed to community violence.
We get children and families who have experienced homicides, children who have been victims of abuse, sexual abuse. And if they don't get any type of support or treatment for the trauma, it will continue to impact them throughout their lives.
We do a tremendous amount of outreach to every entry point that we think that survivors will be going to let them know that services are available for them. The important thing is that you get those systems, police, the city, the mayor, the prosecutor, your nonprofits, to really understand that we have to have an integrated response.
The partnerships are vital so we can meet the needs of the entire community, so we can grow together.
It's the building of the trust and the belief that we are going to walk that walk with them. Through word of mouth, a reputation is just created, and Sahara is viewed in the community as one of those organizations that never says no. Recent immigrants experience a vast difference between the culture that they are used to and the culture in this country. That frustration sometimes gets expressed as anger and ultimately violence. They can target easily their spouses and their families because there probably won't be a complaint.
When English is not a first language, the system just becomes that much more difficult to navigate. Telling the story to someone that's genuinely listening and not questioning them, or they don't have to prove themselves, that's very empowering.
That's good.
We are listening not only with our ears, but with our hearts. Without that, there would be a lot of victims that stay silent.
Empowering victims means acknowledging them and their humanity.
As humans, we are social beings, and we do best when we are in healthy families, healthy communities.
Working together, we have a collective impact. When you're empowering victims, you're giving them hope. Hope in themselves and hope in their future.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joye. The 2015 National Crime Victims Service Award goes to Karen Irene. Ladies and gentlemen, Joye E. Frost, Director of the Office for Victims of Crime.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2015 National Crime Victims Service Awards ceremony. For the first time ever, we are actually live streaming this event across the country So I also want to extend a welcome to all of you who are participating or attending this event virtually. Of course, I want to start by thanking David Ferriero and his staff for hosting us here today in this historic venue. How fitting for the 35th observance of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, first proclaimed in 1981 by President Ronald Reagan. And I was speaking with the Attorney General shortly before we took the stage, and this may well be his last public speech. So how fitting to be in a venue like this. Thank you, Attorney General. My thanks also to the U.S. Armed Forces Color Guard for today's presentation of colors, and the U.S. Navy Band Brass Quintet for their beautiful rendition of the national anthem. What a wonderful way to begin this ceremony. And as I just noted, we're so honored to have Attorney General Eric Holder join us for today's ceremony. And we're also very fortunate to have Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs, Karol Mason, with us today. I cannot overstate how important the support of both the Attorney General and Assistant Attorney General Karol Mason has been to OVC's efforts. I also want to thank all of my colleagues in the Justice Department, and especially my colleagues in the Office of Justice Programs, as well as other federal agencies who have joined us today, and for your support of crime victims. There are other honored guests here today, too many to single out, but of course it's always a privilege to recognize our award recipients, individuals and organizations in the field like those honored here this afternoon. Your incredibly personal and, quite frankly, amazing stories raise awareness and hope for countless crime victims across this country. And of course, it takes the dedicated efforts of many to organize this ceremony. I want to acknowledge the lead OVC staff who planned and organized these events, Maria Berry, Heidi Pham, and Maria Acker, as well as so many others in OVC. I want to thank the staff of Kaufman and Associates for providing logistical support, and of course, kudos to the amazing Robin Smith and her staff at Video Action for your work this year. To produce both the theme DVD and the inspiring award tribute videos that we will view shortly. You know, the award recipient stories are amazing, and somehow Robin and her staff managed to bring these stories to life in 2-minute segments. It's really an incredible talent. I want to note that this is the 10th year of a partnership between OVC and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service to raise awareness of victims' rights and services during the month of April by displaying National Crime Victims' Rights Week's posters and takeaway cards with toll-free victim assistance numbers in more than 15,000 post offices across the country that serve almost 8 million customers each day. April is a month of commemoration in the crime victims field. Certainly, it includes National Crime Victims' Rights Week, but also National Child Abuse Prevention Month, National Youth Violence Prevention Week, and National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. But it is also, tragically, a month of too many mass tragedies, including last year's shooting at Fort Hood, the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013, the shootings in Binghamton, New York in 2009, Virginia Tech in 2007, Columbine High School in 1999, and the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, 20 years ago. These and other terrible acts remind us of the vital work to assist all crime victims in need of help and support. This year's theme, Engaging Communities, Empowering Victims, underscores our vision of reaching and supporting all victims of crime. As many of you have demonstrated through your own work, engaging community leaders, organizations, and local partners is critical to empowering victims. We have made great progress in the last 4 decades on behalf of crime victims, but we must continue to look forward to drive transformative change on their behalf. It's now my honor to introduce the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs. Karol Mason was nominated for this position by President Obama and confirmed by the Senate in April 2013, almost 2 years ago to the day. I first knew Karol in her previous service as Deputy Associate Attorney General in the first Obama administration. She has made invaluable contributions to the work of DOJ and the Office of Justice Programs, and particularly through her leadership of Attorney General Holder's Defending Childhood initiative and her role in creating its task force on children exposed to violence. Assistant Attorney General Mason has also led implementation of the Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation, which consolidates all of the Justice Department's tribal grants under a single solicitation, and I will say other countless initiatives on behalf of not just tribal victims, but all victims. It's both a personal and a professional privilege to work for Karol and to introduce her today. Please welcome AAG Karol Mason.
Good afternoon. I can't really see you all, but I know you're there. Thank you, Joy, and I'm thrilled to join you and the Attorney General for what, as you've heard, we expect will be his final National Crime Victim Service Award ceremony. We're so very happy to have him with us one more time. And I'm proud to be here with so many leaders throughout the Department of Justice and from across the victims field as we honor these extraordinary individuals, teams, and organizations who have done so much to improve the lives of crime victims in America. And I'm confessing now that this year I came prepared with tissues, and for those of you who didn't, you may want to borrow some now before the videos start. There's some wonderful, powerful stories. Their work, reflected in the extraordinary accomplishments that you will hear about today, has done so much to advance the cause of victims' rights and services in our country, and it has helped make our country a more just and compassionate place. I'm grateful to Joy and her fabulous team. All the OVC folks, would you please wave your hands so people can see who you are? So let's join them. We're grateful for all that they've done to make this event possible and for their outstanding work on behalf of victims of crime. We are fortunate to have such a dedicated and talented group of people fighting for crime victims in our country. Guided by their vision and taking the lead from our Attorney General, we have made victims central to our efforts at the Department of Justice to build an effective criminal justice system. Across the spectrum, from our support of children exposed to violence to our response to elderly victims of fraud, we are working to provide victims the assistance they need and give you, their champions, the tools necessary to help them. We know victims and those who advocate for them continue to face significant and growing challenges. Although crime rates across the nation remain at historic lows, victimization is still far too frequent, especially in remote and impoverished areas like Indian country and in distressed inner-city neighborhoods. Criminals continue to find new and more sinister ways to prey upon the vulnerable, whether it's through cyber crimes that target children or by human trafficking operations that use false promises and brutal methods to entice and subdue their victims. The times call for continued vigilance, and they call for sophisticated methods. And these methods require that we be more knowledgeable about what works to address their needs. Under Joy's leadership, OVC's Vision 21 initiative, and as part of the Office of Justice Program's overall commitment to integrating evidence into practice, we are making research and data the foundation for victim services. I'm very pleased that this year the Attorney General will present the first Vision 21 Research Award, which underscores the critical role that information plays in building our service capacity. We hope that by recognizing those who labor to build our knowledge base, we will send a message that science and service can and should go hand in hand. I'm excited about where we stand today. Yes, our work has become in many ways more difficult, but the challenges we face have spurred innovation and have helped us find new and even better ways to reach and serve victims. And one thing has remained constant: the passion behind the work that all of you do. That determined spirit has brought such important changes to the landscape of public safety in America. It has helped millions of people through tragedy and adversity, and it will be the fuel that powers the victims' field forward into even better years ahead. You should all be very proud of the work that's been accomplished. I know that I'm proud of the role that the Department of Justice has played in that work, and I know I speak for the Attorney General when I say that we're all proud to count each and every one of you as our partners. Thank you for all that you do. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker and the Department of Justice's Chief Victim Advocate. And I might cry a little bit about this because you've already heard this may be his last one. So anyway, he's used to it. Throughout his career, Eric Holder has fought to protect the rights and meet the needs of crime victims from his days as a U.S. Attorney through his tenure as Deputy Attorney General and to his extraordinary 6 and counting years as Attorney General. In the time that I've known him and had the incredible privilege of working for him, I have watched him place victims at the center of every important criminal justice policy decision he has made, whether he is launching his groundbreaking Defending Childhood program or designing his signature Smart on Crime initiative. You could not ask for a stronger commitment to victims than the one you see from our Attorney General. He has been an ally and a stalwart supporter, and most of all, he's been a friend of the victims field, and we will miss him when he leaves. Please join me in welcoming Attorney General Eric Holder.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Well, thank you, Carol, for those kind words and really for your outstanding leadership as the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Justice Programs. It's a pleasure to share the stage with you along with Director Joye Frost of the Office of Victims of Crime and David Ferrio of the National Archives and Records Administration. It's a great privilege to join you all once again as we come together to recognize the really tremendous contributions of dedicated colleagues, passionate advocates, and really extraordinary partners. I'd like to take a moment to extend a special welcome to each of the honorees who we are celebrating today. I want to acknowledge the proud family members, friends, and special guests who have taken the time to be here and whose support and whose sacrifices have been really essential to everything that our awardees have accomplished. And I want to express my profound gratitude to all of the individuals and organizations represented in this room and around the country who work tirelessly to support our shared mission. Now, each one of this year's National Crime Victims Service Award recipients has made a really profound, constructive, and lasting difference in the lives of victims of crime. Their efforts have advanced and extended rights of safety, security, and opportunity to which every American is entitled. And all across the country, from our biggest cities to our smallest towns, from rural areas to tribal lands, they've not only stood with those in need, they have helped our nation realize its fundamental promise of justice. Now, one of our honorees has done really trailblazing work in the field of DNA prosecution, transforming the way that we investigate and prosecute sexual assault cases. Another has created a comprehensive multidisciplinary center in Indian country that offers resources for housing, child advocacy, and employment assistance to individuals who experienced violence and abuse. And still another founded an organization that assists families who have lost loved ones due to homicide. From safeguarding survivors of sexual violence to assisting victims of mass marketing fraud, from speaking out against wrongful convictions to developing new research in the field of victim trauma. The recipients of today's awards have been instrumental in a nationwide effort to protect the most vulnerable among us, to prevent and to combat crime, and to help victims find hope and to seek justice. As you go about this vital work, you not only have my thanks and the thanks of President Obama, you also have the full and unwavering support of the United States Department of Justice. We are proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with each of the leaders in this room today. And we are determined to help move this country towards the goals that we all share, not only with words, but with concrete action. Through programs like the innovative Vision 21 initiative led by our Office for Victims of Crime, we are closing a research gap and exploring new data to inform our work and to deepen its impact. With financial support from OVC, the Bureau of Justice Statistics is designing a national survey of victim service organizations, the first ever nationwide effort to capture detailed information on the number, the characteristics, and the capacity of victim-serving organizations in the United States. OVC is also contributing to a major groundbreaking BJS project called the National Crime Statistics Exchange, which is designed to deliver meaningful analytic information about crime to law enforcement officers, policymakers, criminal justice leaders, and victim service professionals. And a substantial new program called the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative is underway in our Bureau of Justice Assistance, which is soliciting proposals from state, local, and tribal jurisdictions to build their capacity to process sexual assault kits. Another development that will have a major impact is contained in this year's federal funding bill, which raises the cap on the Crime Victims Fund from $745 million to nearly $2.4 billion, tripling. That triples the amount that we can withdraw from the Crime Victims Fund to help victims, and quadrupling funding available for state victim assistance program. The growth of the Crime Victims Fund reflects the record penalties and fines that the men and women of the Justice Department have been securing, and it is both gratifying and I think entirely appropriate that they be used to dramatically augment our assistance to victims. Yes. Beyond our overarching efforts, we're making a special push to address the needs of populations that are too frequently overlooked and too often underserved. Through President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative, we are supporting programs that provide trauma-informed care for young men in Philadelphia hospitals and guidance for at-risk youth in New York, as well as a new collaboration between OVC and our own Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which will expand access to victim services for young men of color nationwide. We're also growing our work in tribal communities, where American Indian and Alaska Native victims often face really unique obstacles to accessing services. By strengthening connections between federal and state services and tribal governments, by investing in technology like a mobile app for safety and support services that we're developing through a partnership with tribes in Arizona, and by extending the work of Vision 21, which distributed 3 awards from OVC just last year to tribal organizations building victim-centered community wellness programs. In fact, by streamlining the grant process for tribes under our coordinated tribal assistance solicitation, we have been able to disperse more than 1,100 awards, totaling almost $525 million over the last 5 years, addressing issues ranging from at-risk youth and violence against women to community policing and corrections alternatives. And we are bringing renewed focus to the field of human trafficking by pursuing a victim-centered approach reflected in our updated Human Trafficking Task Force e-guide written by experts in the field that offers increased services to survivors and engages them as valued leaders and partners. With Congress appropriating $42 million to combat human trafficking this year, that's 3 times the amount available in last year's budget, we have an unparalleled opportunity to expand our technical assistance efforts and to support service providers who work with victims of human trafficking. Now, these are all important and in some cases groundbreaking endeavors, but I also know that there is much more work that needs to be done. And I pledge to you that the Department of Justice will never waver as we strive to build on our success and to broaden our reach. And in the days ahead, we will continue to depend on extraordinary leaders like all of you to help and guide and form this work, to rally new partners to this cause, and to drive the progress that our citizens so desperately need. To all those who have been abused, exploited, left out, and left behind, our message is this: you are not alone. You will never be forgotten. We will stand with you, not just today, but always. As we celebrate the remarkable contributions of this year's awardees, I'm confident that we're on the right track. I know I speak for President Obama, for my colleagues at the Department of Justice, and for the American people that we're all privileged to serve when I say thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for all that you have achieved and will continue to achieve. It is an honor to count you as partners in the work with which we have been entrusted. You've heard, although my time in formal public service will soon draw to a close, I will continue to contribute toward the goals that we share. I will continue to serve the mission that we honor today. And I will continue to promote the compassion, the strength, and the abiding commitment to others that animate this really inspiring gathering. I think it's appropriate that I give my last speech as Attorney General of the United States right here, right now, at this event. At its heart, this is what the Justice Department is all about, focusing on victims, making sure that we hold people accountable, and that we deal with the trauma of crime. I think that these young women have been instrumental in placing, they're young, placing us in taking the Justice Department's efforts to a new level. And as I look back on these past 6 years and think about what might be the legacy of this Justice Department, I'm really confident that among the things they will say that we got right, the emphases that you all have placed on services to victims. So, as I said, this is a good place for me to close it out. I want to thank you all again for all that you do. Congratulations on these prestigious awards, and please keep up the great work.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the screen.
So many times when you tell somebody that you meet that you do victim assistance, they're like, I couldn't do that. Nobody ever asks people, why do you do that? I started in victim services in 1991 at the Texas Crime Victim Clearinghouse in Governor Richards' office. One of the things that Governor Richards really instilled in me was the ideal that government is really there to serve people. Information is power. And when you've been traumatized and you've been victimized, having that kind of information about where to go next, who to call, is critical. I spent about 5 years in crime victims compensation, and one of the things that started to happen was these mass casualty incidents. When Lubies happened, all of a sudden you had 23 families who were victims, and you had 150 people who were at that cafeteria who were victims. What could we in the victim assistance field do to be able to respond to that? And Texas being Texas, we decided that we were going to put together our own crisis consortium.
Holy cow, about a third of the building has been blown away.
When Oklahoma City happened, the systems that we put in place in Texas to take care of our people, we were also then able to take care of other people. I think it's important to make sure those people who are providing victim services are providing it from a healthy spot. I'm proud of the work that we did on the Resiliency Project, and that there are child abuse organizations throughout the country that are using that organizational model to help build resiliency in their staff and volunteers.
I like to think that I bring light.
I never would have expected that what started out as an interesting opportunity to do something different ended up being a lifetime career and a lifetime love.
It's such an honor to be able to work with victims and to be able to listen to them and to tell them that you don't deserve any of that, what happened to you. Wichoni-Wawoke is located on Fort Thompson, which is the main hub on the Crow Creek Reservation. We're a domestic violence shelter with a co-located child advocacy center. That in itself makes it unique. I was a victim of a sexual assault. There's a lot of healing that I have gone through and things that I've experienced that have helped me to become a stronger person, to be able to advocate for other people and to help them. I love a challenge. I love a challenge, like, you know what, we could do it, because I have faith. When I stepped into the director position, I really didn't know anything about grant writing and that, but you know what, Creator God knows about all those things. I'm blessed now that our organization has grown and we provide a variety of different services, and we do a lot of education, awareness to the community, and try to give them what they want, and it makes a huge difference. Sometimes you can't just treat, just the one person. You have to treat the whole family. We see a lot of the hurt and the pain and that people go through, but when they learn and grow and they've gotten out of that abusive situation and to see them, it is so beautiful. And here I am. Here I sit. I mean, it just makes everything worth it.
Now I know why I really became a judge, and that was to start catch court. I was in arraignment court one day, and we had a record number of domestic violence cases. When I got to see all the abuse, the hair pulled out, cuts, bruises. The sheriff brought another defendant out, a woman in chains, and she looked like one of these domestic violence victims. And I looked down at the file and it said prostitute. That really struck a nerve. I spent a lot of time interviewing the women, finding out what led you here. These women that walk through that door really are victims rather than defendants. Catch Court started in the fall of 2009 and provides the exit strategy out of the lifestyle of being trafficked. Let me go over a couple things about Catch Court. It's a 2-year intensive probationary period that they enter in voluntarily. We provide housing, treatment, job skills, education opportunities, whatever a woman needs, we provide it for them.
It has absolutely changed my life. They drop me into a room of women who have been through the things that I've gone through. They carry me through that fear and through the guilt and the love, and we hold each other accountable.
They're bright and going to school, getting jobs. They're being reunited with their children and their families. That's been miraculous. It is so humbling to see them blossom.
I would not be who I am if it wasn't for him, and not only because of Catch Court, because of him as an individual, as a person that I get to look up to.
I love being in court and being their judge, to witness the glory of someone finding who they really are and living it out. It's undescribable. And in my mind, that's what justice ought to be about.
Mary Kay Ash always used to say that P&L in corporate America shouldn't just stand for profits and loss, it should also stand for people and love.
In the year 2000, domestic violence was really not being talked about. It was very much in the shadows.
The Mary Kay Foundation started making grants to domestic violence shelters, at least one in all 50 states, many of whom had a hard time raising a lot of money.
In 2008, Mary Kay Inc. really expanded to include the prevention and education work that we're doing now, and that's when Pink Changing Lives and Beauty That Counts started.
Mary Kay is lobbying for good on Capitol Hill, but also in capitals across the country, advocating for legislation that will prevent and end domestic violence.
We have some amazing cause champions who are speaking out against domestic violence and in support of healthy dating and relationships.
Mary Kay is the lead sponsor with Love is Respect, the nation's first and only Text for Help program.
One of the most powerful ways that Mary Kay spreads the message is through our sales force. They're able to take a Don't Look Away compact back to someone in their life. Tucked inside that compact is a life-saving message. Send the text Love Is to 22522 if you or someone you know needs help. I'm so glad that Mary Kay is part of the conversation. There's so much more work to be done.
DNA is making the whole criminal justice system a lot better. The John Doe warrant, I issued the first one in Milwaukee County back in 1999. It was an interesting legal theory, and it was something that was so beneficial to so many sexual assault victims. To know that everything has been done through the legal process and taken as far as it can to hold someone accountable. When you're dealing with victims of sexual assault, I kind of felt that they needed a form of closure. And I'm not sure I know exactly what closure means or when it comes about, but I did know that I had the ability and the capacity to give what I've always called is legal closure. So the purpose more is to try and get some scientific evidence to corroborate what your victim said. In Wisconsin now, if you have a DNA profile of the person that you believe is the perpetrator, if you collect that evidence, develop the DNA profile, and put it in the data bank and do not get a hit, then the statute of limitations is basically suspended until you do get the hit, no matter how many years later that is. It's just immeasurably important to know that, that unbiased voice of science is now going to come into the courtroom, and it works both ways. I've been involved in cases here in Milwaukee County where subsequent DNA testing revealed that the person did not commit the offense. It's a humbling experience. It causes you to step back, pause a bit, and consider what happened. There's nothing more rewarding than having a job that you seek truth and justice. Life doesn't get much better than that.
December the 6th, 1995, my son was murdered. That ended the life of LaWanda knew. All of us get our kids murdered, loved ones murdered, and we here. Treated with no dignity, no respect. We're hearing these derogatory names, people stepping on evidence, no rewards, no door-to-door. So we like, wait a minute. How are we going to attack some of this stuff? What issues are we going to take on? What are we going to do to make a difference? What are we going to do to see that someone else don't become a victim of this crime? And what are we going to do to let people know that this did happen and it's happening every day? We got together and created this organization called Justice for Murdered Children. We felt as though families in South Central LA had to have some place to go. We had to have something beyond just burying our kids in therapy. There had to be something else.
LaWanda really is a problem solver.
She networks with law enforcement. She's on the mayor's task force to be called out and to respond to help the family immediately. She goes to court when there are cases that have been charged and the criminal justice system is proceeding. She will go and she will accompany families to help them through difficult times. She is a great resource and a great advocate.
Until we as people look at all lives and say all lives matter, we are all going to continue to be victimized by this. Fight to the end. You fight. That's what we do. We fight. We don't just lay down and just let them beat us down. We get up and we fight.
The 2015 National Crime Victims Service Award goes to Karen Irene Kalergis. Lisa Heth. The 2015 Professional Innovation in Victim Services Award goes to the Honorable Paul M. Herbert. The 2015 Allied Professional Award goes to Mary Kay Inc. Accepting on behalf of Mary Kay Inc. are Creighton W. Webb and Kirsten Gappelberg. Norman A. Gahn. The 2015 Volunteer for Victims Award goes to LaWanda Hawkins. Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the screen.
I'm an academic. I'm a college professor. I'm a teacher.
What we know about adult sexual assault prosecution is that
when I do trainings with practitioners, I bring in research to really give them a comprehensive picture of what is the underlying research regarding trauma and how can we assist victims of crime. We have our disciplinary silos: psychology, nursing, medicine, law enforcement, prosecution, victim advocacy, social work. And we all know things from our own disciplines, but we haven't really talked to each other. I can't tell law enforcement what to do. I'm a psychologist. I can't tell a prosecutor what to do. But to start from that position of, here is useful information, here is science, peer-reviewed science about the brain, about the body, about trauma, what it does. And here's how we see it manifest in sexual assault victims. And it's a game changer. It makes them think about this differently. Over the course of my career, I've been examining the impact of sexual assault nurse examiner programs and sexual assault response teams. I've seen some significant changes in the community response to sexual assault, which take a multidisciplinary approach to address all of the needs of sexual assault victims: legal, medical, mental health, and advocacy, and to really bring the community to work together to help rape victims. One of the things that I talk about in my trainings is a quote from a survivor. Every interaction with me is an opportunity to help or to hurt. Everybody can help. Within your role, what small part do you have in promoting health and recovery? Make the choice to help.
In 2012 was probably one of the best years of my life. In October of that year, I went out to a concert with a few of my friends. I met someone there who offered to buy me a drink, and after I took that drink is when the entire night just went black. The next morning, I woke up and there was blood all over. I didn't remember anything. I went to the Washington Hospital Center the following day and had a scene kit done. I waited 8 months to find out if they found anything in that rape kit. When they found out that there was other DNA, they couldn't tell me if it was a match. It just seems like a right that every survivor should have.
When I first met Laurel, she was just frustrated with the experience she had had with the criminal justice system. We had some sort of dialogue around, why don't we go to the DC Council and share your experience?
I was asked to actually give a testimony and share my story.
Most people don't know when she went and sat in front of that council to testify, her case was still pending.
And a few of the items that were in my testimony were actually incorporated into that legislation.
She literally took 9 months of what she had been going through and set it aside so that she could give a voice to people to never have to go through what she had been going through and get some groundbreaking legislation passed.
It just gave me a sense of empowerment too, that I was taking something that was so incredibly horrific and turning it into something that was a little bit positive.
Little League, for a kid in Texarkana, that's what your world revolves around. Richard Roberts would come watch me play as a 9-year-old, and the relationship was more
touchy-feely. It was just a different relationship than I was used to having with adults.
First and foremost, he was our baseball coach. That's when the abuse for me began. My brother and I never spoke about that part of it for close to 20 years. When we found out that we had waited too long to come forward, it was a devastating blow.
So the Smith brothers could not pursue state charges because the statute of limitations had expired. So we looked at it federally, and fortunately we're able to find a way to prosecute it under federal statutes and send robbers to prison.
At that point is when I really started thinking about how the statute of limitations need to go away for this crime in Arkansas. My first step was to contact Senator Hickey.
We understood that there was a problem with the law and that needed to be changed.
Getting a bill that sounded good and that was fair and just was very difficult.
There's no doubt in my mind that this bill would not have passed without the testimony of Matt and Mark Smith.
We told our entire story and it passed on the House floor unanimously, and 4 days later we were in front of the governor getting it signed.
Act 144 really changed the whole way that we can protect children in the state of Arkansas. There is no longer a limit on the time that they can actually tell what happened to them.
That's a pretty tremendous gift that the Smith brothers have given to the state of Arkansas.
Engaging the community is what really drives both of us. The best way to empower a victim is being the ear that they tell, this happened to me.
You know, to have somebody that you don't know that well come tell you something that they haven't told anybody before in their life is a special feeling.
Because of their efforts, our laws in the state are forever changed, and we will have another tool to rid our state of these horrible sexual abuse crimes.
In victims' compensation, policies are important so that victims have some idea of what to expect from the system. In order to write a policy, you have to know what the needs are. We have 39 different nations within our state, and each tribe is different. I met a man from the Choctaw Nation who, he said, "What are you going to do for us?" That was very powerful. And I said, I need help. I need help knowing what the needs are. And then I just educated myself about the practices. I sat around at a table with these ladies from all over the country that were very traditional, and they talked about their funeral practices. I so needed to hear that, because had they not opened up and talked about them, I wouldn't have any idea what the needs are in that area.
She created a policy for victims' comp that specifically addressed tribal culture, and her policy has been circulated all over the United States in different states that have tribes, so that they understand how their victims' compensation program can also address tribal culture, and that has made a huge difference in Indian country.
The biggest challenge we have is getting the word out to victims.
Law enforcement uses these, so when they go out on a call with a victim, someone needs our assistance, they can just say, oh, there it is, right there.
Emails don't work, phone calls don't work. You have got to go out and visit to discuss how can we help you, and to let them know that we want to be a resource in the event that you want to apply. And it's important to build a relationship of trust. It's a mutual respect, and that is crucial for the success of being able to work in Indian country.
The MoneyGram case came to our attention when we saw a large buildup of agents who were conducting frauds, lottery schemes, business opportunity schemes, internet purchase schemes, all different types of schemes.
MoneyGram received thousands, tens of thousands of complaints from victims.
We soon came to realize that the company was aware of what was going on with some of these corrupt agents.
They gave these agents additional outlets. They gave them bonuses. In one case, they threw a party for the agent.
Certainly, there was a trend that was noticed by all of us who were involved in these investigations and prosecutions, and that is that we saw more and more of these collusive agents. It was a joint decision to pursue MoneyGram.
The MoneyGram case would have never gotten to where it was without the work of Nick Alicia and Mike Hartman, 2 postal inspectors in the Middle District of Pennsylvania.
These postal inspectors that we worked with, they did not give up.
They worked for year after year after year, facing obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, with their ultimate goal of getting this money back to victims.
AFML's been tremendous with this case. They were not only tremendous on the prosecutorial end, but they've been tremendous on the remission end.
To be able to bring restitution back to tens of thousands of people, people who lost their life savings, people who were true victims, it's a great feeling at the end of the day.
This case has been the most rewarding case I've ever worked. So far through March of this year, we've been able to return over $62 million to over 22,000 victims.
Some of these people have been waiting many, many years for a restitution check like that.
We were able to bring the financial justice to these victims.
It was July of 1984. I was a student at Elon College. As I was sleeping, a man jumped up on my bed, and I knew that he was going to rape me, and I felt pretty confident he was going to kill me.
One day they come and get me and take me to the Burleson Police Department for a physical lineup, and they put those charges on me. I'm sitting in my cell thinking, you know, what did I do to deserve something like this?
I was just overwhelmed with relief. I mean, this man was going to be taken off the streets, and he would never, ever hurt another woman again.
I knew that I was in prison. I knew I wasn't supposed to be, but as a reason for everything, I was on my way to the gym, and I happened to notice an inmate. I said, you kind of look like the drawing of the sketch of a crime that they convicted me on. Did you commit the crime?
Ronald Cotton believed the actual perpetrator was a man by the name of Bobby Poole, who was in the same prison.
I found out that he confessed to another inmate. I was serving his time. I wrote to the Court of Appeals in Raleigh and requested a DNA test. I said, I'm an innocent man. The good Lord knows it up above, and I want to have this test done.
Captain Galden and the assistant district attorney paid me a visit. They said the DNA test is back, and it belongs to Bobby Poole.
The warden told me, he said, Cotton, he said, you're going home in the morning. You're an innocent man.
I asked for a private meeting between Ronald and myself, and I just looked at him and I said, if I spent every second of every minute of every hour of every day for the rest of my life telling you I'm sorry, can you ever forgive me? And he started to cry, and I had been sobbing, and he took my hand and he said, I forgave you years ago.
I said, all I want is good things, you know, for me, for you, your family, my family, peace and happiness.
And we became friends that day.
It blossomed, just bloomed, a full-blown rose. Hey, that weather's a mess out there.
We've gone all across the United States to talk about wrongful convictions and what happens to our exonerees, and about eyewitness ID. But more importantly, we really talk about restorative justice and healing and forgiveness.
And it's just amazing the people, how excited they get by the things that Jennifer and I have done.
It's something that we thought was the right thing to do, but to know that it's really made a difference is huge.
It makes me feel very proud. You know, it's a blessing in disguise.
The 2015 Vision 21 Crime Victims Research Award goes to Dr. Rebecca Campbell. The 2015 Crime Victims' Rights Award goes to Laurel Wemhoff. The 2015 Ronald Wilson Reagan Public Policy Award goes to Matthew Richard Smith and Dr. Marcus Andrew Smith. Suzanne K. Breedlove. The 2015 Crime Victims Financial Restoration Award goes to U.S. Attorney's Office, Middle District of Pennsylvania, U.S. Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Money Laundering Section, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Accepting on their behalf are Christy Fawcett, Craig Tim, Kim Douglas Daniel, Nick Alicia, Michael Hartman, Robin Henry, and Sharon Miller. The 2015 Special Courage Award goes to Jennifer Thompson and Ronald Cotton.
recipients would join us on the stage now. We're going to have a class photo. If everybody in the audience would remain seated. We're going to have half on the floor. So this concludes our ceremony. Thank you all again.
Let's give our award recipients one more round of applause. Thank you all for coming this afternoon.